Hey guys, Cher here, and welcome back to the 5th day of 12 Days of Anime. And today, this video is going to be a little different. I was kind of thinking about this today because I was catching up with this season's anime. It's about to come to an end, and one of the shows I've been watching this season is Bloom Into You, the latest Yuri anime that is basically not citrus, if you know what I'm saying. So this is your classic shoujo-ai romance where two girls end up, being in a relationship, but there is a twist to it, and I don't want to spoil it now. I'm just gonna talk about that when I make my season end mini reviews for the anime that I've watched this past season, if you know what I mean. So I was watching this show, and I'm pretty into it, like almost everyone else, because it has a really good score on my anime list right now, if you know what I mean. So I'm watching this, and there is a scene in the anime where one of the main girls talks about getting a love letter from one of her kohais. And not an official kohai, it's kind of one of those scenes where she's talking to her best friend and it's just thrown in to add some character development relevance. When I think about that, she's holding a physical note, with the envelope and everything. And I was like, we're in 2018. I don't know anyone who, even I graduated high school a couple years ago, and even in high school I did not know anyone who gave physical love letters to people. If a confession was going to happen, it was going to be either A, in public, or B, through social media. And that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit today, because I noticed this cliche. I call it a cliche because it's mostly commonly found in either slice of life or strictly romance anime and manga. Almost anything I can find, there is always a love letter scene, whether it happens to the main guy in the show or series or the main girl. It doesn't matter. You get the envelope. Sometimes it'll have a heart sticker on the back to hold down the envelope flap, or it would have hearts drawn over it, or you actually see the note and it said come meet me in the back of the school or something, or I've always had a crush on you, would you go out with me, that kind of thing. And I was just sitting here for some of the series, the more modern series, we see people using computers and cell phones. Could you just tell someone through those, or ask or give them a phone call or text to meet you instead of stuffing the envelope in their shoe locker or something? Now, granted, if this show were to take place in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, I would give it a little more leeway because maybe technology wasn't as accessible back then. The internet didn't really rise to popularity until the late 90s or early 2000s. So I can give that a little leeway. I'm not too annoyed by this, or annoyed's not even the right word for it. Maybe confused. But if we're going to talk about series that take place in the mid to late 2000s or even the 2010s, I'm just okay, I can see why they would want to do a letter because it's a little bit more personal, but it is extremely old-fashioned by this point. And regardless of whether it's used for a comedic gag or some romantic intent, I'm just finding it a little strange coming from the person who grew up with technology, and a lot of people just speak to each other through their cell phones because if they're not with that person at that exact time, it's easier to access a person or get a person's attention just through messages or phone calls. But I'm not going to completely rip this cliche apart because in some ways I actually do understand why this cliche is sometimes often used. in mostly romance and slice of life series, I tend to like to write letters, birthday and Christmas cards, because you put your heart and soul into what you write in those cards or letters, because it comes from you. Technically, you could do the same thing with a computer or text messages or even emails, but for some odd reason, when you actually make a card and design it as your own, I guess it makes or gives a better connection to the person that you're sending it to. Like, for example, like, I gave friends and family members birthday and Christmas cards all the time because I really want to show them how much I love them and how much I'm proud of them and that type of deal. So when it comes to these love letters, the love letter, physical love letter cliche that's in anime and manga, I think I can better understand why they do it, because there's a sort of romance to making something that you hope that your crush would actually adore and respond positively to, especially if it's created by a person that they know and hopefully care about. So you often see a lot of times that people put into their own little twists in these love letters. Like, it's their own handwriting. It's their own little drawings that they put into it. It's their own words. Like, regardless of whether that person, like, wrote it or not. So what makes it romantic is that it's their ideas that they're putting down physically onto a letter or a card, and they're stuffing it in the box, and they're hoping that their crush would actually see it and take a positive response to it. And, I mean, come on, it's a crush-to-crush thing that everyone gets a little nervous or excited when they deliver these types of things because they want a positive outcome to come out of this. Oftentimes, it's more rejection than it is acceptance that I've come to realize out of this cliche, because every time I watch or read these types of scenes, we always know that it's going to end up turning into a rejection. I don't know why, but every time I see that scene, I just know, oh, this is from either a character that we're never gonna see again, or it's from a character that'll be jealous of the person that the main lead would end up choosing at the end of the day. Like, it's become a trope more associated with how a person's gonna get rejected. And I'm not saying that if you send a love letter or a poem or anything like that, you're gonna get rejected off the bat. I am not saying that. It's just, I guess the only thing that I'm a little annoyed about with this cliche is that people are sending these love letters to a main character, and we know as the audience they're gonna get rejected for whatever reason that is. It's just, I would hate to see those love letters go to waste. Like, the only example I can come up with that uses love letters or any types of letters to the advantage of the couple's story is The Notebook. Especially when, I'm blanking on her name, the female lead sends letters to the male character, Noah, I think? My god, I have not read the book or seen this movie in forever. But those letters actually meant something. Of course, those letters meant something to the main female lead because her mother hid those letters secretly because she's from a rich family. Her parents did not like Noah by any long shot because he's not as rich as they want him to be. But those letters become the impact of the story because they were proof how much Noah still loved and cared about her. Like, that's when those letters should be used appropriately. I mean, even though the story took place in, the 40s, and technology didn't exist, that doesn't matter. At least they were put into important use. For these letters in, anime or manga series, sometimes, very rarely, do they become, a driving plot of a certain arc or certain show, like I said, more often than not, they are used as rejection plots to either develop the main character or set up some sort of other subplot that's going to be irrelevant later on. And if I were to say anything about where I want this cliche to go at the end of the day, either don't use it at all, or end up using the cliche for something that drives the plot of the story at some point. Like, don't just throw it in there for the sake of trying to make a romantic moment, but it ends up being thrown out at the end of the day. So I hope you guys liked this little ramble, I guess. If you did, please hit the like button somewhere below the screen here, and if you guys have your own opinions about this love letter cliche, please feel free to comment. I would really like to start up a conversation if you guys want to, and I would like to hear you guys' thoughts. I'm Cher, and it's been real, and I will see you the next day. Ciao!